Welcome to Self-Crafted Life, the space where you stop doubting, start trusting, and finally live as the real you. Loving your imperfections, a path to wholeness. When perfection becomes a prison, there's a quiet kind of pain that rarely gets talked about. It's not loud, it doesn't scream or beg for attention, but it lives in the silence after we scroll through someone else's perfect life. It shows up in the way we shrink a little when we see our reflection. And most of all, it whispers to us in those quiet moments alone. Why can't I just be better? We live in a world obsessed with improvement, globe success stories, self-help hacks. We've been taught that every flaw is a problem to fix, that every imperfection is a barrier between us and love. But what if that's not true? What if our imperfections aren't detours from the path, but part of the path? What if wholeness doesn't come from becoming someone new, but from coming home to who we've always been? This episode isn't about fixing you. It's about seeing you. The version of you that tries so hard, that hides the pain behind a smile, that keeps chasing worth like it's just around the next corner. Together, we're going to explore what it means to stop running from your flaws and start listening to them. To understand where shame comes from, how it takes root, and how to gently untangle yourself from the belief that you have to be perfect to be loved. Because the truth is, you were never meant to be perfect. You were meant to be real, and real is more than enough. 1. The quiet war with yourself. Sometimes the hardest battles are the ones no one sees. You wake up, get dressed, show up to work or school, and on the outside, you're functioning. You smile when someone greets you. You laugh at the right moments. You say, I'm fine, even when you're not. But inside, there's this constant hum of self-criticism, a quiet war between who you are and who you think you should be. Every mistake feels like proof that you're failing. Every compliment feels undeserved. Every silence becomes space for your inner critic to fill with doubt. You don't hate yourself, exactly, but you don't trust yourself either. You question your decisions, second-guess your feelings, and constantly scan the room for signs that you're doing something wrong. And the worst part? You've gotten so good at it, most people don't even notice. But here's the thing, this self-doubt didn't start with you, it was taught. Maybe it came from a home where perfection was praised and softness was punished. Maybe it came from teachers, relationships, media, all quietly sending the message, you're only valuable if you're flawless. Over time, that message becomes internalized. And now, you don't need anyone else to criticize you. You do it for them. But what if you pressed pause on that voice? What if you asked yourself, gently, where did this come from? And even more gently, do I still want to carry it? This war doesn't have to last forever. You don't have to win it. You just have to stop believing that you're your own enemy. You're not broken. You're just tired of fighting yourself. And maybe that's the first sign you're ready to heal. 2. Where shame begins. Shame rarely shows up as a loud voice. More often, it's quiet, subtle, a glance, a tone, a moment you didn't even realize was shaping you. It starts young. You show emotion. Someone tells you to stop being dramatic. You express a boundary. They call you difficult. You fail, and suddenly love feels distant. Over time, a pattern forms. Certain parts of you feel unacceptable. Not because they are, but because someone once responded to them with discomfort or disapproval. So you hide those parts. You dim your light, soften your opinions, overcorrect your behavior. Not to manipulate, but to survive. Shame is clever like that. It disguises itself as responsibility. If I were smarter, they wouldn't have left. If I looked different, they would have stayed. If I just try harder, maybe I'll finally be enough. But shame doesn't push you toward growth. It pulls you into hiding. It teaches you to edit yourself before the world even asks you to. And slowly, your relationship with yourself becomes conditional. I'll like myself. Once I change, I'll rest. Once I'm perfect, I'll deserve love once I stop messing up. But here's the thing, you're not a project, you're a person. And shame doesn't make you better, it just makes you smaller. Healing starts when you stop asking, what's wrong with me? And start asking, who taught me there was? 3. The performance of being fine, I'm fine, may be the most practiced lie of our generation. It's easy, isn't it? You say it with a smile, with eye contact, with a tone that sounds believable. You say it when you're anything but fine, because explaining the truth feels too complicated, too risky. So instead, you become a performer. You show up. You get things done. You're the strong one, the reliable one, the one who never complains. And slowly, people stop asking how you really are, because you've trained them to think you're always okay. But beneath the surface, you're tired, not just physically, but tired of pretending, tired of holding it all together, tired of feeling like the only safe emotion is silence. This kind of performance doesn't happen overnight. It usually starts in childhood, when you learned that your emotions made people uncomfortable. So you learn to self-regulate too early, to suppress instead of express, to trade authenticity for approval. And now, even when someone asks, "Are you okay?" your instinct is to protect them from your truth. But here's what we forget. Being honest about your pain isn't a burden, it's a bridge. When you say, "Actually, I'm not fine," you create room for real connection. It's scary. It feels exposed, but it's also where the performance ends and healing begins. 4. The fear of being too much. Have you ever caught yourself shrinking? Not physically, emotionally, spiritually. You start to say something, but stop. You want to express joy or frustration, but hesitate. Because somewhere inside, you worry. What if I'm too much? This fear doesn't come out of nowhere. It usually begins in the moments you were told, directly or indirectly, that your full self was overwhelming, that your intensity, your questions, your sensitivity, your voice were inconvenient. So, little by little, you became smaller, quieter, easier to digest. You told yourself it was maturity, or emotional intelligence, or being low maintenance. But really, it was fear. The fear that if someone saw all of you in your fullness, your fire, your feeling, they would walk away. So instead, you offer a watered-down version of yourself, and then wonder why no one truly sees you. But here's the truth. You were never too much. You were simply in rooms that were too small. The right people won't ask you to shrink. They won't flinch at your depth, or your softness, or your truth. You don't have to be less to be loved. You just have to be you, unapologetically, imperfectly, fully. 5. Living for approval. Forgetting yourself. When was the last time you did something just because it felt right to you? Not because it was impressive. Not because someone would applaud it. Not because it made sense to others. Just because it felt aligned with your inner compass. If you can't remember, you're not alone. Many of us were raised to seek approval before clarity, to look outside for direction instead of inside. And slowly, we start to outsource our identity to the people around us. What should I wear? What should I believe? What should I want? Instead of asking ourselves, what's true for me? We ask, what will make them happy with me? And sure, it works for a while. You get the applause, the likes, the validation. But then, you're alone, and it's quiet. And you realize, you don't even know what you like anymore. Because you've been building a life around everyone else's expectations. The price of approval is often authenticity. But the good news is, you can come back to yourself. You can start small, with one honest answer, one quiet no, one bold yes. You don't need permission to be real, just practice. 6. When silence becomes self-protection. A kind of silence that doesn't feel peaceful. It feels like self-erasure. It's the silence of swallowing your thoughts, of pretending something didn't hurt, of nodding when you want to speak up, but feel like it's not worth it. It's easy to mistake this for emotional maturity, to tell yourself, "I'm keeping the peace," when really, you're keeping yourself invisible. This habit often comes from a time when speaking up lead to conflict. Maybe in your family, disagreement wasn't safe. Maybe in school or early relationships, being honest meant being shamed. So now, you equate silence with safety. But silence isn't always safe. Sometimes it's suffocating. Over time, this self-protection turns into self-abandonment. You avoid conflict, but also connection. You keep things smooth, but never real. And eventually, you forget what your voice even sounds like. But here's the truth. Your voice deserves space. You don't have to yell to be heard. You don't have to argue to be seen. You just have to speak. Honestly, imperfectly, bravely, even if it's hard, especially when it's hard. 7. The illusion of being easy to love. People often say, "You're so easy to love." But sometimes, what they really mean is, "You never complain, you never challenge me, you never make things uncomfortable." And while that might feel flattering at first, it can slowly become painful. Because being easy to love shouldn't mean disappearing. It shouldn't mean bending, silencing, or performing to keep the peace. But for many of us, that's exactly what love looked like. Conditional, uneven, quiet. So we learned to become convenient, agreeable, predictable, and deep down, we started believing that love has to be earned by being easy. But love that only exists when you're agreeable isn't love. It's performance. Real love doesn't need you to shrink. It invites you to be whole. It celebrates your depth, your fire, your needs. You don't have to be easy to be worthy. You just have to be real. 8. The moment you realize you're missing, there comes a moment, maybe in the middle of the night, maybe during a conversation, maybe when you're brushing your teeth, when you suddenly realize, "I don't really know who I am." It's not dramatic, it's not loud, it's just a quiet ache. A strange sense that somewhere along the way, you disappeared. You've become so many versions of yourself to survive, to belong, to be loved, that now, when no one's around, you're not sure what's left. It's a disorienting feeling, but it's also sacred, because awareness is the beginning of return. The moment you realize you're missing is the moment you can start coming back, not to who you were told to be, but to who you actually are. That version of you still exists under the layers, and it's not too late to find them again. 9. Choosing yourself without guilt. For many of us, the idea of choosing ourselves feels selfish. We've been taught to put others first, to be generous, kind, accommodating. But there's a difference between kindness and self-erasure. Choosing yourself isn't abandonment, it's alignment. It means noticing your needs, honoring your boundaries, saying yes to your values, even if it means saying no to someone else. It's not about pushing people away. It's about stopping the pattern of pushing yourself aside. At first it might feel uncomfortable, you might feel guilty, but over time you'll realize you can care for others and still care for you. You can be loving without self-sacrifice. Choosing yourself isn't rejection, it's a homecoming. 10. Returning to wholeness. Wholeness doesn't mean perfection. It doesn't mean having it all figured out. It doesn't mean never struggling. It means being connected to yourself, even when things are messy. It means making space for the parts of you used to hide, the softness, the mistakes, the sensitivity, the contradictions. Wholeness is when you stop trying to be a better version of yourself and start getting curious about the one that's already here. You don't need to become someone else to be lovable. You just need to return gently, slowly, to who you are. That's enough. That's always been enough. Final word. The courage to stay with yourself. Coming home to yourself is not a single moment. It's not a quote you read or a decision you make once and never look back. It's a practice. A quiet, daily act of choosing to stay with yourself, even when you mess up, even when you feel insecure, even when the voice in your head tells you you're too much or not enough. You stay, you breathe, you say, I'm here, I'm not leaving. Because for so long, you did leave. You abandoned your own needs to meet someone else's. You quieted your voice to avoid conflict. You looked outside for validation, hoping it would fill the emptiness inside. But not anymore. Now, you're learning that you don't have to earn love by shrinking. You don't have to perform to be worthy of presence. You don't have to be perfect to belong. There will still be days when you forget, when you fall back into old patterns, when you catch yourself disappearing again. That's okay. Healing isn't a straight line. It's a soft return, again and again. And every time you choose to return to your truth, your feelings, your boundaries, you're rewriting the story. You're building trust with yourself. So let this be your reminder. You are not a problem to fix. You are not a project to complete. You are a person, worthy, whole, and evolving. And the most radical thing you can do in a world that profits off yourself is to love yourself anyway. Stay close, stay gentle, stay with you. You're not too far gone. You're already on your way home. Remember, the world doesn't need you to be perfect. It needs you to be real. Keep showing up as you.